Hi, friends. Welcome to the Parenting Lab. Let me start today by setting a familiar scene for you. It's the end of the day. You're exhausted. Your child isn't listening. Maybe homework is dragging on. Bedtime is late. Whatever is going on, it feels like everything is taking more effort than you have left. You ask nicely. Then you ask again, this time a little firmer. And then before you even realize it's happening, you're yelling. If you're like many of my coaching clients and parents I talk to, this might even happen way before bedtime, maybe even before breakfast. Whatever time of day you start yelling, it's often followed by guilt. Why did I do that? I said I wasn't going to yell. Why can't I get this under control? If that's you, I want to make sure you understand right at the beginning of this conversation that yelling isn't a character flaw or a sign that you're failing. And it's definitely not proof that you don't care about your kids or your partner or whoever it is you're yelling at. Most parents who yell are actually trying really hard not to. And if yelling were just a willpower issue, if it were something you could solve by being more disciplined or more mindful, you probably would have fixed it already. But yelling doesn't come from a lack of effort or self-control. It comes from overwhelm. So today we're not going to talk about how to stop yelling by controlling yourself better or gritting your teeth through hard moments. What we're going to do is talk about why yelling happens in the first place. Because yelling isn't the problem. It's a signal. It's your nervous system saying, this is too much. It's what happens when pressure builds and there's no room left to hold it. Now, for a lot of us, yelling becomes the fastest way to release that pressure or to feel heard when nothing else seems to work. That doesn't mean yelling is effective in the long run, but it does mean it makes sense. And when something makes sense, we can work with it instead of fighting it. There's also something I think we need to be honest about, even if it's uncomfortable to say out loud, and that is that yelling actually works sometimes, at least in the moment, right? It gets attention, it stops behavior, it can create immediate compliance. And when your nervous system is already at its limit, that sense of relief can feel necessary for survival. But the cost comes later. It shows up in our relationships, in how safe our kids are able to feel with us. It also shows up in how we feel about ourselves once that moment passes. And over time, yelling actually makes communication harder, not easier. Because when voices get louder, nervous systems shut down. Listening decreases. Learning, non-existent. People stop hearing the message and start reacting to the tone. So if you find yourself stuck in this cycle of yelling, apologizing, promising yourself you'll do better, and then ending up right back here again, nothing is wrong with you. Your nervous system has just been doing the best it can with the patterns that have formed in your behavior. And the good news is, nervous systems can learn new patterns. This episode isn't about fixing yourself. It's about understanding what's happening inside you and learning how to create enough safety and regulation that not only can you stop yelling, but that yelling no longer feels necessary at all. To really change our relationship with yelling, we have to first understand where it comes from. Because none of us woke up one day and decided, you know what? I want to be the kind of person that yells. Yelling is something that we often learn, okay? For many of us, it was the primary way emotions were expressed growing up. Raised voices meant something mattered. Anger sounded loud. Urgency sounded loud. Conflict sounded loud. And when that's what you grew up around, your nervous system learned very early. This is what communication sounds like when things get serious. Even if you swore you would never parent that way, even if you hated it when it happened to you. Our nervous systems don't change just because we make a promise. They change through awareness and practice. For some families, yelling was constant. For others, it only showed up when things were really bad, which made it even more powerful. Either way, your body learned an association. Raised voices equal importance, authority, control. So when parenting gets hard, as it does, your system reaches for what it knows, not because you want to hurt your child, but because you want the moment to stop feeling so out of control. Another reason we yell is because, quite honestly, it feels like the only way we can be heard. When you're repeating yourself over and over, when you're managing 1,000 invisible things all at once, when your needs have been ignored all day or all week, or forever. Yelling becomes less about the child and more about the buildup inside of you. It's your body saying, I have reached my limit. This is also where triggers come in. Now, a trigger isn't your child pushing your buttons. A trigger is something inside you being activated, and it's often something old. It might be disrespect. It might be being ignored, mess, chaos, or feeling out of control. These moments don't just feel frustrating, they feel threatening to a nervous system that's learned early on that situations like this aren't safe. So yelling shows up as a protective response. And underneath all of this is the nervous system piece. When we yell, we're not choosing our words carefully. We're not accessing our values. We're not calmly deciding how we want to show up. We're in fight mode. Our body is flooded and our brain offline. And communication becomes about survival and not connection. So this is why when we try to say, just stay calm, it doesn't work. You can't think your way out of a nervous system response. And I think there's something else important here, especially for parents who feel a lot of shame about yelling. Yelling is often the result of chronic dysregulation. It's a lack of rest, a lack of support, holding everything together for everyone else. And when there's no space to discharge stress, it comes out anywhere that it can. And it's usually with the people we feel safest with. This is why you yell at your kids or your partner or your siblings, but probably not your neighbor kids or your friends or the cashier at Starbucks, although maybe you do, which can often mean that yelling has become not just a response, but a primary form of communication. That doesn't necessarily make it okay, but it does make it very human. Even when we understand why we yell, because of patterns or dysregulation or overwhelm, like we've talked about, there's still an important question to ask. If yelling feels so automatic, and sometimes even effective, why does it feel like it leaves so much damage behind? And this answer has less to do with the bad behavior of yelling and more to do with what happens inside the body when voices get loud. When yelling enters the room, nervous systems respond to it. For the person being yelled at, whether that's a child, a partner, anyone else, the brain doesn't register instruction. It registers threat. And when the nervous system perceives threat, it does exactly what it's designed to do. It focuses on survival. Listening drops, curiosity disappears, learning shuts down. So even if the words themselves are reasonable, they're not landing that way. What gets remembered isn't what was said, but how it felt. And this is especially important for kids. When children are yelled at, their brains aren't thinking, "You're right, Mom. I should do better next time." They're thinking, "I need to make this stop." This can look like compliance in the moment, but compliance isn't the same as understanding. And over time, that distinction matters because yelling doesn't teach skills, it teaches fear-based listening. It teaches kids to pay attention to tone instead of content and to manage the adult's emotions rather than learn how to regulate their own. And this doesn't just affect parent-child relationships. The same pattern shows up in partnerships, friendships, workplaces. When voices rise, people either shut down or they escalate to match the energy. They get defensive. They stop feeling safe enough to engage honestly, which is why yelling often leads to more conflict, not less. And here's the paradox that so many parents notice but may not have the language for. And that is that the more we yell, the less effective we become. Because the louder we are, the harder we are to hear. Yelling might stop a behavior in the moment, but it erodes trust over time. It makes connection feel unpredictable, and it teaches everyone in the relationship to constantly brace themselves for impact instead of leaning in for connection. There's also a quieter cost that parents carry internally, and that's that feeling of regret and shame. The feeling that they've acted in a way that doesn't align with their values or match who they want to be. That disconnect matters, not because you need to be perfect, but because when our behavior is consistently clashing with our values, it drains us. And this is where I want to be very clear. Recognizing the impact of yelling is not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding why willpower alone doesn't change this pattern. Yelling happens when nervous systems are dysregulated, and we know that change can't happen in the middle of dysregulation, which means the solution isn't to try harder to stay calm in the moment you're already overwhelmed. The solution is to start working before you reach that edge. And that's where we're going next. This is where I want to offer a reframe that might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but it's also incredibly freeing. And it's this: if you want to yell less, you have to stop trying so hard to stop yelling, because suppression is not regulation. White knuckling your way through hard moments doesn't create change, it just delays the explosion. Most parents who are stuck in a yelling cycle already do this. Suppression looks like holding it together, biting your tongue, just pushing through, or telling yourself to calm down. And eventually, something tips the scale. Not because you failed, but because your nervous system has reached its limit. So instead of asking, how do I stop myself once I'm already yelling? The more helpful question is, how do I notice and support my body before it gets to that point? We don't stop yelling by controlling ourselves harder. We stop yelling by regulating earlier. Regulation is what creates choice. When your nervous system feels safe enough, then you have access to your values, your patience, words. And when it doesn't, your body takes over and it chooses the fastest path to relief. And that's not a moral issue, it's a biological one. This is why so much advice about yelling falls flat, because it focuses on behavior and not our capacity. You don't need better parenting scripts. You need more internal space. And that space is built outside of the moment where you're yelling. Regulation isn't something you do instead of parenting. It's actually what makes intentional parenting possible. When your system is regulated, you can hold boundaries without raising your voice. You can pause instead of escalating. You can respond in ways that actually match who you want to be. And this is important. Regulation doesn't mean that you're calm all the time. It means noticing when your system is speeding up or ramping up, right? And knowing how to slow it down before you lose access to yourself. And that's the shift. We move away from why can't I control myself and more towards this idea of what does my nervous system need right now? Once we ask that question, everything changes, because yelling stops being something you fight against and becomes something that you listen to. And when you listen early enough, you don't have to yell at all. Okay, by now you're probably thinking, this all makes sense. I get why I yell. I get why willpower isn't enough, but Brittany, how do I actually do this? Don't worry, I have some tools for you. But remember, the goal here isn't to try harder. It's to work with your nervous system instead of against it. And we start doing that by noticing what's happening before the yelling even begins. Think of it as catching yourself before you go off the edge of a cliff instead of slamming the brakes after you're already flying. So, tool number 1, learn your early warning signs. Your nervous system is constantly giving signals before a blowup. Okay, the trick is to notice them. Some examples might be your jaw tightening, or maybe your fists clench, or your breathing gets fast and shallow. Maybe you feel hot in your chest or your stomach. Maybe your vision gets all tunnely, or you have a feeling that your words just have to be heard immediately. These signals aren't bad. Your body is saying, I'm close to reaching my limit. And when you notice them early, you create space for choice. Awareness equals power, right? We talk a lot about awareness. Even pausing for one deep breath can give your nervous system a moment to reset so you can respond instead of react. So tool 1, learn those early warning signs. There are actually some fantastic tools to help you map this out in lab number 5 of the Parenting Lab series. I'll link that in the show notes for you. All right, so tool number 2, name the trigger, not the behavior. Triggers are your body's way of reacting to past experiences, not your child trying to push your buttons. I really want to emphasize that, because triggers are not external forces. They're internal. So when you're noticing a trigger, I want you to name it internally. I'm feeling rushed and out of control. I feel disrespected right now. This chaos is activating my stress response. Okay, notice how different it feels saying, I'm feeling ignored versus, oh, why is this child always ignoring me? Naming the trigger gives your body and your brain language to work with. It shifts you from blame mode to awareness mode, which is the first step toward regulation. It's not your child's behavior that is causing you to yell, it's your body's internal response to it. Okay. Tool number 3, pause without abandoning. Once you notice what the warning signs are, give yourself a moment to pause. Pausing doesn't mean just walking away and leaving your kids to fend for themselves. It means you step back, you take a breath if you need one, get grounded, and you say something honest and simple like, you know what? I need a minute to calm down. Or I want to respond and not react right now, so I'm just going to step away for a second. I'll be right back. That pause is really a gift, okay, for you and your child. It's modeling emotional regulation and teaching that even grown-ups need space to manage those strong feelings. Tool number 4, regulate through your body. Calming the nervous system is not about thinking your way out. It's about feeling your way out. So try breathing exercises, drinking cold water, stepping outside. Think sensory calming tools, okay? Things that engage one or more of your senses that bring you back into body awareness. Even a short 30 seconds can calm your body, giving your mind access to the part of the brain that now can choose to respond. All right, tool number 5, repair instead of shame. Sometimes yelling still happens, and that's okay. This isn't about perfection. Repair is really what matters here. It restores connection and models accountability. This is super easy. You can do it in 3 steps. 1, acknowledge what happened. 2, identify your intent. And 3, make a plan for next time. Now, this is as simple as saying, I raised my voice and I'm so sorry. I wanted you to hear me, but I did it in a way that wasn't helpful. Next time, I'll step back first and take a break. Okay? Repairing doesn't erase what happened, but it teaches children that mistakes are normal and that accountability is powerful. And it shows that you're on the same team and learning and growing together. And the last one, tool 6, build your nervous system resilience outside of those moments of dysregulation. Regulation isn't just about handling the crisis in the moment. It's about building that capacity day by day by day. So prioritize rest, move your body, take grounding breaks when you can, seek support, talk to a partner, friend, or your coach. The more your nervous system is cared for outside of those high stress moments, the more space you'll have to respond instead of react in those moments that do matter most. Now, before we wrap up, I want to pull back and I want to just look at the bigger picture here. Yelling isn't just about this one moment, this one homework battle, or even this one day. It's part of a pattern that may go back generations. Maybe this is how conflict sounded in your home growing up, or how stress showed up. When we yell, we're repeating those patterns, even if we swore we'd never parent that way. And that's where the work of healing generational patterns comes in. Because every time you notice your nervous system, every time you take the pause instead of just reacting, every time you repair after a moment of yelling, you're actually rewriting the story of your family line. You're creating a new cycle where words matter and voices matter, even when they're quiet, because yelling has a cost. It doesn't just affect that moment, it shapes how your child experiences connection and safety and trust. It challenges marriages and partnership, and even affects how you feel about yourself. So here's where we stand. You're not going to stop yelling by controlling yourself harder. You're not going to stop yelling by trying to fix your child's behavior. You might think, oh, if she would just do her homework, I wouldn't have to yell. But that's not where change happens. Change happens in your nervous system, how you respond and repair and practice these new patterns over time. I wish there was a way to just stop yelling. I do. So many parenting stories would be different if we could discipline ourselves out of it. But control without healing is just survival, performance. It's not transformation. And that's that kind of paradox that I mentioned before. To truly stop yelling, you have to stop trying to stop yelling and dig so much deeper into yourself and your patterns and your triggers and your nervous system. This is big work. I know it is, but you are capable of it. And I promise you that when you approach yelling with a perspective of healing, not just acting differently, you will find relief. Now, there's one last thing that I want to address really quickly, and that's the fact that not all parents are yellers. I'm actually not a yeller, but my nervous system still gets dysregulated. My attachment story and my patterns tell me to go silent. My kids learned in their childhood that mom was the scariest when she got quiet, not when she yelled. So that relational cost was still there. It just showed up differently for us. So, to those of you who shut down or go silent or feel that seething anger but hold it in, these tools are for you too. I know they work because this is how I've experienced it in my own parenting. And it is healing my family and my relationships and my ability to communicate with others. Guys, this work is for everyone, no matter what your patterns are. I hope this episode leaves you feeling empowered and encouraged in your efforts to show up better for your family. Please reach out if I can offer support, especially in my Facebook group where you can ask questions and get coaching style feedback. I'll link to that as well as Lab 5 that we talked about, which has so much information on regulation and the nervous system. It really is an invaluable resource, and I encourage you to look into it. Before you go, would you take a moment to leave a quick review and share what you find helpful about our podcast? Every review builds our community and makes this content more available to the parents who are looking for help and resources. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see you next week, where we'll continue to explore the art and science of parenting and put your parenting to the test. Take care, everyone.